Thank you everyone for joining today's presentation on comparing the quality of different glass types. I'm Jeff Reed. I'm a global market manager for Wheaton Industries. If you're not familiar with Wheaton Industries, we supply primary packaging components to the pharmaceutical industry. We supply these in a variety of different material compositions, from rubber to glass to plastic. However, today's presentation will be specifically on glass and the considerations that should be taken into account when packaging pharmaceutical drug products into glass. I'm going to start off with a quick introduction of the overall presentation, which will provide you with the different states of matter in regards to glass and the different glass types. I'm going to then compare the different glass types, and then we'll get into the interaction of a pharmaceutical drug product with glass. There's two major interactions. There's the ion exchange reaction and the attack via the hydroxyl group. So we'll discuss both of those. We'll go over an elemental extractables profile we did on different Wheaton glass types. And then lastly, I want to talk on the effects of irradiation in regards to glass. Irradiation is a common sterilization method, so it's critical to discuss what effects it can have on glass. At the end, we'll summarize everything up and then we'll have our questions. So glass is mainly comprised of silicon dioxide. And when silicon dioxide is in its pure form, it forms very regular shaped 6-bonded tetrahedral structures. I have this shown on the left-hand side of the screen here. The melting point of such structure is over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So fabricating glassware at such high temperatures can be very challenging. Therefore, there's added modifiers and stabilizers to either lower the melting point of glass to make glass more durable, or to even change the color of glass in regards to amber glass. Now, when you start adding molecules on top of one another, you start to develop an amorphous structure, as shown on the right-hand side of the screen. Anytime you're dealing with an amorphous structure, you constantly have atoms and bonds shifting around. And when you have this, you have to take into account that there could be elemental extractables under specific conditions. And this is what the talk will be on today. So in summary, when you have 100% pure molecule in its pure form, you have a crystalline structure. When you start adding molecules on top of one another, you develop an amorphous structure. There are 3 different glass types. There's type 1, which is known as borosilicate glass. This has roughly 10% of boric oxide in it, hence the name borosilicate glass. This has your lowest coefficient of expansion and your highest hydrolytic resistance, meaning it's less prone to interact with a pharmaceutical drug product. Therefore, this glass can be utilized for parenteral drug products. Next, you have type 3 glass, which is known as soda lime glass. This has high amounts of sodium and potassium oxide in it, which comes from soda ash, hence the name soda lime glass. This has a very low hydrolytic resistance, meaning it's more likely to interact with a pharmaceutical drug product. Therefore, it's not utilized for parenteral applications. Lastly, you have type 2 glass. It's the same as type 3, however, it goes through an ammonium sulfate treatment to increase the hydrolytic resistance. Any type of these glass can be manufactured via the tubular process or a molded process. Tubular process is a 2-step process, molded is a 1-step process, and we're finding that even the process in which the glass is manufactured can affect the elemental extractables, and I'll touch on this again a little later. So, when comparing type 1 versus type 3 glass, type 1 glass, you're going to have a low coefficient of expansion, meaning that it's able to withstand temperature change and it's resistant to high temperatures. You're going to have a higher product compatibility, a low level of extractables, whereas type 3 glass, you're going to have, it's going to be more economical. However, you're just going to have an average chemical resistance. A drawback of type 3 glass is that you can actually have a common ion exchange with sodium in a hydroxyl group, which actually causes sodium to enter into the drug product, and this will increase the pH of the drug product. So what I want to do now is really discuss the difference between tubular and molded glass. I'm not going to say one is better than the next. It's just that it is application specific, and I'll touch on that here. Bottles are molded, which means it goes through a one-step process. There's a gob of glass and a mold. The glass is never reheated, it's just heated once. Most likely the molded containers are more economical. However, it's definitely due to the fact of the size of the container. I'll touch on that shortly. You will get more of a wavy wall appearance with molded glass versus tubular vials, and that's due to how it's manufactured. However, it's very advantageous to utilize molded glass on specific applications such as radioactive pharmaceutical packaging, and that's due to the fact that molded glass has a more thick wall thickness to it, so you don't have to worry about breakage as much as you would tubular glass. Now, tubular vials are formed via a two-step process, whereas the tube of what we call a cane tubing process, where the tube is formed in high temperatures, it's then cooled down, and then the forming of the vial goes on. So we're finding that the heating once and then reheating of the glass will definitely affect the extractables profile. The larger diameter of the tubular cane of tube that you start with is definitely going to play a price factor. It's advantageous to use tubular vials when you have a fill volume between 2 to 20 ml. Anything 30 ml or plus, you want to use the molded container just due to the manufacturing process. If you have a fill volume under 2 ml, it's advantageous to use what we refer to as a high recovery vial. This vial has a conical shape on the bottom of the actual vial. This presentation isn't on that, but we have some at our booth at M27 if you want to stop by and look at it. And then lastly, tubular vials are going to be more transparent because it has a smooth wall thickness. Now, in my next slide, what I want to do is give you a visual depiction between the two. On the left, you have a tubular vial. You see it has very straight wall thickness, whereas on the right, you have a molded container where you have a very wavy wall thickness. So again, one is not better than the next. It's very application specific, and due to the wall appearance of the two, it's due to the fact of the manufacturing process. Okay, so what I wanted to do with this slide is not just provide you with the molecules that make up glass, but also provide you with the raw materials and why are these molecules added into glass. Obviously, sand makes up the highest percent. The molecule in sand is silicon dioxide. Next, you have aluminum oxide, and the raw material of this is feldspar. Aluminum oxide is added to glass to make it more durable, and that's due to the fact that the aluminum element forms 3 covalent bonds with the oxygen group, and this keeps the potential constituents that can leach out in its 2-dimensional form. Sodium oxide and potassium oxide can be found in soda ash. This is added into type 3 glass, which is soda lime glass, and it's added to lower the melting point of the glassware, so it's easier to manufacture. Calcium oxide, which comes from limestone, that's added to both type 1 and type 3 glass, and it's meant to keep the bonds more uniform and to keep the atoms intact. Boric oxide, which comes from borax, That's specifically added to type 1 glass, which is borosilicate glass. This lowers the coefficient of expansion to type 1 glass. That's why type 1 glass is a much better glass than type 3. The rest of these elements are what you would refer to as transition metals. These would be added to glass, specifically amber glass, to help change the color of glass from clear to amber. So you can see there's a variety of different molecules added to glass. It's not just silicon dioxide. Therefore, you can't look at glass as a stoichiochemical structure, but it's more of a structure that's always going to change, and it's due to the fact of the percent of molecules that is added into glass, and even to how the glass is formed. So now let's get into, real quickly, the interaction with pharmaceutical drug products and glass. There's two major reactions. There's the ion exchange reaction, and that's when a hydroxyl group will actually react with an element such as sodium or calcium, and this occurs at very low pHs, and it's just your basic ion exchange. The next is going to occur in more of a basic environment, anywhere from 8 to 9 pH. So if you're packaging a drug product with a pH of 8 to 9, you've got to take this in consideration, is the fact that the hydroxyl group can interact with the silicon and oxygen bond and actually dissolve the bond. And this is known as silicon dissolution. Also known as, I'm sure everybody heard this term, delamination, which is a very big controversial topic in the pharmaceutical industry. So what will happen is that hydroxyl group, the hydrogen will interact with the oxygen on the inner glass surface, and the silicon will actually reach out into the end pharmaceutical drug product, and then you'll get glass flakes. So two different reactions: ion exchange reaction, which is going to happen in more of an acidic environment, and then you have attack via the hydroxyl group, also delamination, which is going to happen in more of a basic environment. So what we did at Wheaton is develop a Wheaton rule of thumb when it comes to glass. If you're packaging a pharmaceutical product that has a pH of 8 or less, it's advantageous to utilize tubing vials. If it's a parenteral application, then obviously utilize type 1 glass versus type 3. If you have a pH product that is 10 or less, then you want to utilize molded containers. Anything over 10, you don't want to utilize glass. You want to utilize maybe an advanced copolymer plastic, or there's several vendors that are coming up with these unique vials. Nipro actually has one in the market, Vial X. So you may ask, why a tubing vial versus molded container? And this is associated with the manufacturing process. Remember, the tubing vial is manufactured via one-step or two-step process, whereas a molded container is a one-step process. All right, so now I want to get into the elemental extractables of the different Wheaton glass types. But before I do, I want to touch on extractables and leachables and the test methods that are utilized to test for these. There are two types of leachables. You have your organic leachables. You commonly find these in plastics. And then you have your inorganic leachables, in which you find in glass. Depending on the class of compounds is the analytical technique you want to utilize to test for them. For your volatile organic compounds, you want to utilize headspace GCMS. For your semi-volatile organic compounds, you want to utilize GCMS. And for your non-volatile organic compounds, you can utilize a basic analytical technique such as LCMS. Now, when you're testing for metals, you want to utilize analytical technique known as ICP OES, which is ionic coupling plasma optical emission spectroscopy. And this is the analytical technique we actually performed on the different Wheaton glass types. So real quick, I'm sure the crowd knows, but the difference between extractables and leachables, I just want to distinguish this. Extractables are the chemical entities that can extract from a primary packaging component into the end pharmaceutical drug product under accelerated conditions. And these accelerated conditions could be longer exposure time, introduction to organic solvents, pH shifts, or increased temperatures. Where leachables are the chemical entities that can come from the packaging component under normal storage conditions. So leachables are what the pharmaceutical industry is most concerned with, because this is going to have a direct impact with the end patient. And this scheme follows the same when it comes to elemental entities and elemental impurities. So our tests that we did, we're discovering elemental entities that can come from glass. If it was a glass product that was packaged with the final pharmaceutical drug product for the end patient, that would be known as an elemental impurity. Okay, so here's the test results we actually had. A couple things I want to point out here is that you see the sodium element. You see you have much higher amounts in type 3 glass versus type 1 glass. And that's due to the fact that sodium oxide is added much more in type 3 glass. And if you remember why, anybody? It's meant to lower the melting point of type 3 glass. The next thing I want to touch on is calcium oxide. Calcium oxide comes from limestone. Also, there's magnesium oxide in that as well. And you see a much higher amount in type 3 glass than type 1 glass. And that's, again, why you wouldn't utilize type 3 for parental applications. Lastly is the silicon. There's a much higher amount of silicon in type 3 glass than type 1, and that's because that's more associated with delamination. Type 3 glass is more likely to delaminate than type 1. And again, this happens in a more basic environment of a pH roughly around 9, and the hydroxyl group will actually dissolve the silicon to oxygen bond, leaching the silicon into the pharmaceutical drug product. And then you end up with glass flakes in the drug product. Something I don't have highlighted here, but it's an interesting thing to discuss, is that if you look at the silicon, you see that there's much more silicon, not much more, but there's more silicon present in type 1 tubular glass versus type 1 molded glass. And that's what I mean, that even the manufacturing process can affect the elemental extractables. Tubular glass, again, it's a 2-step process to manufacture it, whereas molded glass is a 1-step process. And then just to give you a little background on this, all these results are in parts per million. And to really give you a visual of this, is picture putting a drop of gasoline in a full-size car tank, and that's equivalent to it. So it's very, very small amounts. Also, the background on this is that we put 20 milliliters of ultra pure water, pH of 7, inside 30 ml vials. We autoclaved it for 60 minutes, which is well over the hydrolytic test standards for EP Chapter 3.2.1 and USP Chapter 660. So we autoclaved it 60 minutes at 121 degrees Celsius. Also, I just want to mention I do have test results for type 2 glass. And remember, type 2 glass is soda lime glass, but it goes through ammonium sulfate treatment. I just don't have it present here. If you want to hear more about that, stop by our booth at N27. Okay, so lastly, I just want to touch on the effects that irradiation can have on glass. There's 3 major methods for sterilization. You have chemical sterilization, you have high temperature, high pressure sterilization, and you have irradiation sterilization. We already mentioned that the autoclaving can affect the extractable profile, specifically in type 3. Also, one interesting thing to note is that gamma or E-beam irradiation can affect the color in either type 1 or type 3 glass. So this picture shows on the left the same clear borosilicate vial, or I'm sorry, this is a molded bottle, went through gamma irradiation and it turned from clear to almost an amber color. What we ended up doing is annealing it at very high temperatures. Now, this is something you would never do. It's just an interesting experiment that irradiation does cause color change to glass, but you can change it back if you anneal the glass. So you may ask, why does that happen? And that goes back to my last slide, where I mentioned that glass is not a crystalline structure. Glass is an amorphous structure, and what happens anytime you have the gamma rays interact with the silicon models, atoms, you'll have the shifting of bonds. You'll actually cause the silicon to become loose, and this will cause the glass to change its color. It's important to note that if you do get color change, it's not radioactive, it's not contaminated. The only thing it would affect is, I guess you could say, your marketing ability. If you're selling, let's say, a vaccine and you want it to be in a clear glass vial or clear glass container, and it goes through irradiation, rather it be E-beam or gamma, you could affect the marketing scheme of your drug product. So that pretty much sums everything up. Again, glass is it's an amorphous structure. It should you should look at glass as a stoichiochemical structure, meaning that it's not like a piece of steel where it's always going to be the same. It's always going to change. It's associated with not just the molecules that you put in, it's the percent of molecules, and it's even associated with the forming process of the actual glass container itself. Know the three different major glass types. Again, one is not better than the next. I believe that the material composition of packaging is very application specific. It's dependent on your product. Glass might not be what you want, it could be plastic, so it's very important to work with a vendor that can match your product, your application, with a specific material composition. Know the Wheaton rule of thumb, and then always take elemental extractables into account when you're packaging pharmaceutical drug products into glass. So at this time, I'll open it up for questions. I think I still have 2 minutes. If there's any other test results you guys want to see, or if you want to see any other primary packaging components we have, please stop by booth M27, and we can have our questions at this time.